Alright, brother and sister truth seekers, I am sorry it has been so long. It's taken so long for me to come out with this, but life has just been really busy, and when you try and collect data like this, it just it's very time consuming, and it kind of wipes you out, and when an event is done, you almost need time to recuperate and try and catch up with all the other things in life. And I've heard that's the case for other people who participated in this study, and so I apologize it's taken me so long to put this together, but let's go ahead and try and make sense of this. If you were checking into this study and maybe you looked at this summary and it wasn't making much sense to you, I'll tell you what I see from this data and we'll kind of see what the participants had to say kind of in summary, and their contact information has been included here if you want to get in touch with them and discuss any of this data in more detail. But essentially what we were doing was we were trying to confirm, let's see here, yes, I want you. We were trying to confirm when the shadow of the sun would start to return. So if you're collecting data from a sundial over the course of a day, like maybe every hour you collect a data point off of a shadow, you're going to see, that's what these X's are, you're going to see these patterns start to form. And on the summer solstice, this is the orientation that I see, like up in North America. It might actually be flipped if you're living down in South America, for example. But I believe the patterns we see on the summer solstice. You'll see this pattern near the fall equinox, or possibly on the fall equinox. You'll see a straight line, but that's actually something that still needs to be proved down. I'm not sure if that straight line will only tell you the proper date for the equinox at the equator, and it's just an ongoing thing to verify that method. But then in the summer solstice you'll see a flipped curve like this. So anyway, after the spring equinox, this pattern starts to head this way, and it takes roughly 100 and what is it? I guess no, it would actually take about 91 days to get from here to here, and it's slowly progressing and totally slowly starting to arc more. So what we were waiting for and what we were looking for during this study was when this pattern, every day you're going to see, I didn't show them here, but you're going to see another line pattern, and it's going to be moving slightly up, and it's also going to be getting slightly more and more curved. Those are two important things to remember. But anyway, we were looking for the point when this shadow pattern would reach its most extreme position, and I guess from this orientation it would be the most southern position. And so we know once the sun reaches that position and then starts to return, that is the longest day of the year. When I guess again in North America, and we're all looking to see when it hits that position and when it returns. So we were just looking for that sign, and this is the data that we collected. And coincidentally, it's just a coincidence, but it seems, so to explain this map, you have the map ID here, and then the letter corresponds to the map ID, and this is information about the observer. So A, B, C, D, one in Australia, E, and then one in Spain, F. And coincidentally, it just so happens, I guess, that I was point number A, and I saw in theory, I saw the straight line pattern first, and then Squirrelly Nations did see the straight line pattern following me, and then we have C and D, who are the remnant of light, and she or they believe they saw it on the 18th, and it's possible. It's possible we could all be wrong. Don't. We did the best we could to collect this data, but we all need to be kind of humble and honest, and it's anything is possible. So I mean, I'd just like to encourage us all to keep doing this. We could be wrong, or she could be right, or she could be wrong. We could be, but we just need to keep doing this, and more people need to do this, and we'll get better and better. And I'm gonna have some tips to offer that maybe will, eventually at some point we'll hopefully all be getting the same dates. And I'll share what each, again, has to say about what they saw. But in theory, again, to explain Southern Oregon, I guess Mark was able to confirm the shadow was returning at this point. So from the 21st to the 22nd, he was seeing a return. I think he had overcast skies or something prior to this. And so he was only able to confirm definitely by this point, the 21st and the 22nd, he saw a return. And then in Australia, the date switches now to the 21st, but he saw it. This is a progression of time, though, within a 24-hour cycle-ish, 24 hours, all these sightings were made. And then finally in Spain was the last one to see the shadow return. And so what's interesting about that, so you can kind of understand if that makes any sense to you. The reason, so what I can say is, I think this line right here definitely shows the shadow was returning. This line right here seems to be an outlier, but it could be that we were all doing it wrong. I wouldn't discourage them. Just keep trying. We all need to keep trying. Maybe it is possible the majority was making mistakes, so we just need to keep working at it. But if it was so, it seems like the majority of data points, so this confirms a return, this one we're not sure, but these four seem to be saying that the solstice day began, if it began here and ended here, or, well, I mean, I was the first one to see it coincidentally here, and he was the last one to see it here. That means somewhere in here is where the solstice day began, and maybe if we had another observer over here, we could confirm if this pattern was seen over here or over here first. But I mean, so this seems to be suggesting that the solstice, the longest day, occurred in America. It occurred on what would be the 20th. And again, to explain what's going on with this discrepancy of dates, I believe it's consistent because of the international date line. And I'm going to be making a whole bunch of short and sweet to the point videos about different things, but what you see here, I mean, you can see this is clearly arbitrary. I understand why man created it for practicality, to make sure everyone had a standard of time to be on the same page with, but you have to realize the creator's international date line is very likely not this. And so it kind of messes with the dates. But you have to realize, and this map's incomplete, but if we were seeing the sign here, the sun has to travel, and it'll travel, and it'll travel, and, if the clock started here, it's still the same 24-hour period from here to here when they saw it in Australia, but the date has changed because of the international date line, but it is still the same 24-hour period that Australia saw it and America saw it, and then it continues to progress over to Spain, and Spain saw it again within the same 24-hour period as the US saw it, but it's a different date because of the international date line. And I just want to show a quick schematic to further explain that. You know, I'm just going to talk about the straight line pattern for a moment, because that one kind of makes more sense when you think about this. But you know, in order to see the straight line pattern when you're recording, if you're at this location, the sun needs to be east of you, because to get the straight line pattern, you're collecting data all day from sunrise to sunset. And if you get the straight line pattern at sunrise, the sun isn't overhead at sunrise, it's over here somewhere. So the sun needs to travel all this way, and this person at this location is recording from here to like here for the entire time the sun is up in the sky, and they're able to record data. But as the sun moves, you've got to realize the sun doesn't set. It just doesn't disappear. Yes, from this person's perspective, it's going to become night, and then day again, and then night again. But the sun's going to keep moving around the Earth, and people around the Earth are going to keep getting the opportunity to see the sign. And so, if the sign day began here, what about the person who lived right here? You know, they haven't seen the sign yet, so they're waiting for the sign to begin. So if the sign day began here, it has to travel all the way down, and here's Australia again. And someone around here, the sign day is beginning for them, and then it needs to continue a little more for them to be able to see the sign. And if you look closely at this, I have these staggered just a little bit left or right of this, to kind of show how this person, this person right here is just a little to the right of this person here, and so this person might not have seen. This is just food for thought. I mean, this isn't completely to scale, but I hope you understand that the sun keeps moving, and it might take a little more than 24 hours of the sun moving in order for everyone on Earth to have the opportunity to see the sign. But it is within the same 24-ish hour period, and it's only because of the international date line that the dates get played with. So, let's see. I think I'll just share what the participants had to say about their data, kind of their last remarks. I'll let you pause the video to read these comments for yourself. This first one was remnant of light, and this was the outlier, but like I said, you never know. I have some food for thought that I'll share with what might have been going on there, but that is just food for thought. It is possible we all might have actually had it wrong. Everyone else. This is what Enzo in Australia had to say about his final observations, and this is Mark in Oregon. So you can read what he had to say. Pause the video. And this was our friend in Spain, a very thorough summary. I'll let you read through that. He was really dedicated, took a lot of time off to try and confirm what was going on here. And the last one was, more. Yes, you can pause the video to read and see what they have to say. And the last one was Squirrelly Nations, and I never really got an official summary from him. I know he was very busy creating a new line of sight contraption, because one of the things I think a lot of us were just realizing is it's a challenge to follow the shadows. And it can really be, there were some interesting things going on. There's always learning to be done during these kinds of events, but long story short, Squirrelly Nations, I think, came up with a really good device, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of data he's able to collect with it. But I know this time around, I feel pretty good about Squirrelly's data, what he collected, because I just know from experience that the taller your sundial, the more of a difference you're going to be able to see in your data from day to day. And now I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that, give some tips about that. Let's see if I've messed this up. So, let's look at this picture for a moment just to demonstrate. And let's look at this picture too. So if you have ever collected data over an entire year, and you've seen these patterns, and maybe you were doing it on a table with a, like a 3 or 6 inch tall nail, you'll see these patterns, and the difference from here to here is like maybe 3 inches or something. You've got to realize the difference from here to here on your table, it's representative of the sun moving 180-ish days. And so in order to see the movement per day, you have to take this distance and divide it by 180-ish, and that'll tell you how much movement you're getting from day to day. And it's really small, and I've done this myself, and I honestly have been very frustrated with how small the movement is, and it's very hard to tell, like if you're just a little bit off, if it's just a little bit overcast, the shadow moves. If your mark is not done with a sharp pencil, there's just so many variables, and it's so small. But I want to say, look at this picture if you can see it. Let's see if I can make it just a little bigger. So what's going on here is this is a picture of the sundial tower that I used. Oh my goodness, and I forgot exactly how tall it was. I mentioned it in another video, but I think it's it's been 3 months, I forget. But it was roughly, I think it was like roughly 100 or 150 feet tall maybe or something. But when I collected my data, I was down here on this road, because there's something I'm going to talk about here, the sloped road, and that was the early morning. But then I got overcast skies, and I kind of lost my ability to track the shadow progression over here because it was overcast in the morning. So I had to switch and collect data over here on this road, and there's a bridge over the interstate right here. And for this solstice event, the shadow from this tower right here was crossing the road right at the beginning of the bridge, right here. So over the course of the day, the arc pattern that I was seeing, I think, was something like this shape. So the arc was like a frowny face. Let me see if that corresponds with the picture I drew. Probably doesn't. I probably have it backwards. Oh, because yeah, I am looking the wrong way. I think this should be flipped because north is up here. So I think that might be right. But anyway, realize something. The summer solstice, longest day of the year, this shadow from this tall sundial was crossing the bridge right about here. And this is a picture that I just snagged from Google Maps, and you can actually see the shadow of the tower in this picture, and it goes all the way right here. And I want to point out that this is likely not even during the winter solstice yet. This might be close to the winter solstice, but you can see the leaves are off the trees. It's sometime in the fall, maybe close to winter. I mean, it'd be most conservative to say it is the winter solstice, but in probably all likelihood, it's not yet the winter solstice, and my point is that this shadow will get even longer. But just say it is the worst case scenario. Say it's the winter solstice and the shadow made it this far. Here's a scale down at the bottom, 100 feet. So you can see from solstice to solstice. We were just talking about this, and I've done this myself with a little board and a little nail on my windowsill. I've done it a couple times, and the distance, when you're only using a 3 or 6 inch tall sundial, the distance from solstice to solstice is only like 3 or 6 inches or something. But when you have a very tall sundial, the difference from solstice to solstice is like, remember this is 100 feet, it's like, yeah, it's several hundred feet I'd say at least 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 5 or 600. So then divide that by 80 days, and the movement every day should be, it should be close to almost a foot, certainly inches, but not like the fine microscopic movement that you would see with these smaller sundials. So I highly recommend, especially for the solstice events, if you're going to collect data, that you try and find yourself a tall object, maybe a skyscraper in the city, maybe a cell phone tower. The taller the better, because the Washington Monument, possibly the if you live next to a mountain and there's a sharp rock or something at the top, you could use that point as a reference point. But that's what I recommend. But anyway, let's talk about another trick that you can do to try and get more movement from day to day. So if this is the sun and then it moves, and this is the sun on the next day, and this is the line of the shadow or the sun rays is casting, and you kind of made your mark here one day, and if you're recording on flat ground, you made your mark here the next day, you can see if you're actually recording on a sloped surface, the mark that you make this day will be here, and the mark that you make this day will be down here. And from you can compare the distance from here to here and from here to here, and I have that shown here. So if you're recording data on a slope, that can help you a lot. And if your slope is really extreme, you might even be able to make a short sundial work if you put like a board down right in front of it or something at a steep angle. You'll be able to see it fall up and down that board dramatically, just because the slope of the recording surface is close to the slope of the sun ray that's coming in. So that's just one tip. One thing I noticed. Another tip. This was just an experiment I was running to see, because I had another theory that the shadow might grow longer as you get closer or farther from the summer solstice to winter solstice. But what I discovered was, if it's equal movement from day to day, no matter what the angle is to your tower, so this is supposed to be a tower, or your sundial, it seems as long as it's equal duration, it's actually going to be equal no matter what. So that was kind of interesting. But here's one more thought, and Squirrelly Nations mentioned this. If something's going on in the movement, the north-south progression of the sun is actually getting less and less each day, then that will make the shadow pattern get less and less each day. So that's just food for thought. Hopefully that makes sense. But to summarize that, the tips I would recommend, there's one more tip. So if you, on a solstice event, the best, from what I've learned from the past and from this event, what I can recommend is make sure you get a really tall sundial. And if you check out some of my other videos, I think I do mention how tall this sundial was. I think it was 100 feet. There's one more. There's actually two more tips. In addition to having sloped terrain, that sloped terrain is also, if it's down in a dip, your tower might only be starting on the flat ground and be this tall. But if you're recording somewhere down in a valley below the tower, you're buying extra height, so you're making your tower extra tall. So that helps too, in addition to the slope. And there's one more thing I want to mention, is the time of day you record. So remember, during the spring equinox, it's pretty much a straight line, and again, that's up for further study, because I wonder if it's possible that straight line pattern might only declare the equinox if you're at the equator, and it might give you a straight line on a different day. Possibly we'll get more into that later in a prep for fall equinox video. But remember, it's approximately a straight line during the equinox events, and then not only is the entire shadow pattern progressing north to south, but it's also arcing. So these points out here are early morning and late evening points that have been recorded, and you have to realize, if you're collecting data and you're watching, you're trying to see the movement, if you're recording from like solar noon to solar noon, that is the shortest amount of distance that you're going to see movement. So like, to say it another way, you remember what I said, like from solstice to solstice, this is the entire movement. So you take this entire movement and you divide it by approximately half a year, because that's how long it takes from solstice to solstice, approximately 180 days, and that is the increment of how much movement you see from here to here. But look at this. If you were to record data here and here, then it's from here to here is, you divide that by 180 days too, because technically from here, from this to this is also half a year. It's 180 days, but look, the distance from here to here is like 3 times the distance from here to here. So you might, depending on the height of your sundial, you might have been seeing like 3 or 6 inches of movement, at this time of day. But if you were recording in the morning, you would have seen 3 or 4 times that much movement, like a foot or 2 feet. And so, all that to say, from my experience this year, I had a lot going for me. I was recording over here, like I said, in the morning. So I had the advantage of this huge displacement that I was seeing in the morning. It was like 8 or 9, I think it was 8. It was around 9 o'clock in the morning that I was collecting. And in addition to that, I had a tall sundial. In addition to that, I was also below, I was in a dip. There's a dip down here, so it was even much taller. And I was on a slope, and I had all this stuff going for me, and I did a video where I showed the progression from one day to the next, and it was easily like a foot, and there was like no questions to be asked. But then, like I said, as we got close to the solstice event, I consistently had clouds. It was like the most amazing cloudy week I've ever seen. But I had clouds in the morning, and I just could not record data in the morning, and so out of desperation and the sun came out and I recorded on this road. But I lost so many advantages when I came here. I lost the advantage of being down in the dip, so I lost like 30 to 50 feet height of my sundial, in theory, like from here to here. I was on flat ground, so I lost the advantage of this versus this over here. And the other thing I lost was the advantage of recording in the early morning or near, solar noon, when these 2 points are closest together. So I lost all of those advantages, and I did what I could, and all that to say, it wasn't as obvious talking about my data. It wasn't as obvious as it was here. Like, it was really a challenge. I think the movement was only like 3 inches, so it was really close. I lost all of the benefits that I had here. So, I mean, anything is possible, like I said. I know for Squirrelly Nations it got really tight too there at the end, so anything is possible. Like, I've just seen truth seekers, making observations in the past, and they're just so confident about it. And then, 2 or 3 years later, we have a lot more truth seekers getting involved, and then we realize the first attempts with sundials were actually wrong. And, people are coming out and admitting that. And so I'm just trying to be as humble as possible about this, and I don't want to discourage others just because their data does appear to be the outlier. That doesn't necessarily mean the majority has it right, and we hopefully all just need to keep working at this and share our experiences and try different things, and hopefully someday we will all get the same date. But there is so much I'd like to say, but I think I'm going to try and wrap that up. Back to the, so to summarize all of that, and to take a quick look forward, what does that mean for the next solar event? Just to mention again, the way time works, according to Stellarium, this is important, and if you've seen some of my other videos, where is that? This right here is an important question that we're trying to answer. We're trying to confirm the duration of the solar year, where time begins, and the duration of the sign day, and this is important. And it's phase 2 of an experiment I did in Stellarium to try and understand, like, this is data I collected on the winter solstice from Stellarium, and I have videos titled Where Time Began. You can check out every detail about the study that I did. But you can see I was able to look at the coordinate data in Stellarium to see when the sun hit its most extreme coordinate, and in 2018 it hit its most extreme coordinate here. But in 2019, the sun hit its most extreme coordinate here, and in 2020 it hit it here, and in 2021 it hit it here, in 2022 it hit it here. And what this is it's a progression. It's literally an accrual. It's literally an overplus. It's literally, according to Stellarium's program, it is taking literally 365.24-ish days for the sun to do its north-south movement. This north-south progression, apparently, if modern science is right, and it seems the Gregorian calendar has done a pretty good job of staying in sync with the seasons, it seems that, where was I? Stellarium is reflecting that. It takes 365 days to return from point A to point, from the north-south movement of the sun over the course of the year. In order for it to complete itself, it starts at the equinox, and then it goes up, and it goes down here, and then it returns to the equinox. But for it to complete that north-south cycle, it literally seems to take 365.24-ish days, and that is why you see this 0.24-ish is 25% of the map of the Earth, and it's jumping that much every year. So as far as this goes, I mean, this is important because it seems like, the first person to see it was here, the last person to see it was here, so somewhere in here, it seems, is where it began. But if this is true, according to the Stellarium programming, then that means that this is going to keep shifting. So it might, I'm not sure, but I would expect that at some point, certainly, maybe, I don't know if it'll be this fall, in time for the fall equinox, that it's going to make it over here, and it's going to kind of divide the nation. But I mean, somewhere the Creator's international dateline actually starts. Like the man-made international dateline, this is fake. But this line represents when the sun truly divides the seasons. It hits its extreme mark, and that is the division of a season, and then it divides the seasons. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen this fall. I am going to make a separate prep for fall equinox video, and I am going to make a separate video talking about kind of what I think the implications are for the calendar, if anyone is interested in that. But I'm trying to keep this data collection separate from that kind of thing. But so what does that mean for the fall equinox? Taking a brief look forward, if it is true that the solstice was confirmed to be on this day, then the only thing I can say is the seasons should be equal, and this is another topic that I've been looking into lately, and it seems modern science is claiming the seasons aren't equal, and I think that might actually have something to do with why it's possible we're seeing the straight line pattern on a different day. Not to say that modern science is correct that in its claim that the seasons aren't equal, or that the straight line pattern supports that theory. Like I said, I think it's possible the straight line pattern might only work at the equinox. It's just something we have to continue to look into, but it seems like there was little doubt about this. I mean, I've always had doubt about the equinox events, but I've always been very confident that everyone on Earth, there's no doubt, is going to see the sun hit an extreme point and then start to return. And so it seems like this was the day that got confirmed by a majority of witnesses. So if I count from there, this is theoretically going to be the first day of fall. But I'm going to start collecting data, and I'm going to look more fine. Like I said, I'm going to have a prep for fall equinox video kind of discussing more about that. But on that note, I just want to mention real quickly, the seasons not being equal, I did crunch some crazy numbers here. And just to show you, I went to timeanddate.com and just asked them, something about the seasons, how long are the seasons, and I got all this data of the time for the equinox and solstice events. And I just transcribed that into Excel, and I looked into this to see, try and understand it more, and I have a video talking about this realization I had about our modern science saying the seasons aren't equal. And in that video I mentioned the theory I had that modern science might say the seasons aren't equal, but I bet the half years are equal. The solstice is solstice, because it just seems like, again, how can someone mess that up? Because it's obvious the sun will hit a point and start to return. For the equinox event, the more and more you do this, the more I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say. But there is another video for the spring equinox 2018, I think. If you look at the thumbnail picture of that video, you'll see like a curve, and I think it's like 30 minutes long, but it's analysis of the different possibilities that are happening because of the geometry and just my concerns and questions about that. But anyway, the thing is, it does, if you take the time to try and understand what's going on here. I just, essentially, I was subtracting years, so this is 10 years of data, 2014 to 2024, and I just subtracted the duration of the days and took the average of the days and divided that to get the duration of the season. If the year is that long, the duration of the season should last approximately that long. So this is the summer solstice, and again I took the average, and then this number is the duration of the season from the last season to the next seasonal day. And so this is the fall equinox, and again took the average of the year, distance from the last season. This is the distance from the half year looking back, and this is from the half year looking forward a year. And then this was the winter solstice, again the average of the year. This is again the half season looking back. And this is I think this is the half season looking, wait no, this is the half season looking back. This was just the length of one season. This is the half season looking back. This is actually a 3/4 of a year. This is the half season. Oh wait, this was one season looking forward. This was the half year looking forward. And what I discovered was, I think I confirmed my theory, and I took the averages, and what is this? Okay, so this is the half year looking back and the half year looking forward, equinox to equinox, and this was the half year. This was the half year looking back, and this was the half year looking forward, and this is just half of that. And so you can see that the average, I just divided this number by 2 and divided this number by 2. And these numbers are very close to the year divided by 4. These numbers, however, from equinox to equinox, are off by almost 2 days. So it supports my theory, and again, I mentioned in that video, I think there's a slight discrepancy because they're not understanding the duration of a sign day, and that has to do with this picture that I was describing earlier, where it takes more than 24 hours for everyone to be afforded an opportunity to see the solar sign. Like, it's not, if this person is starting to see it here, like, this person hasn't seen it yet. So when the sun reaches around to here, the sun has to go beyond that person in order for them to see something like the straight line pattern. So it's more than 24 hours. So, and I think that's why modern science might have that off just a little bit. But what this does tell me is from solstice to solstice, they are very close to what the seasons should be if they're equal. And they're just a little off, I think, because they're not understanding the duration of the sign day. These, however, are pretty far off. They're almost 2 days off. And I think that is because there's no, you've got to listen. We're going to look into this. We're going to figure this out. But what is the reference point? How are they making the decision what an equinox is? Remember what Enoch, the book of Enoch, said an equinox event was. It is equal day and equal night. And so all of the methods I have seen, none of them are really looking for that. That's the equilux event. But the equilux event only happens with regard to this conversation. It will only be accurate if it is taken at the equator. All these other methods, the straight line method, zeroing in on the North Star, measuring an angle of the sun, what is this with respect to? Like, it's not, yes, it's interesting phenomenon. The straight line pattern, for example, I've been trying to get to the bottom of that one, but does it necessarily declare, with what is it with respect to? And like I said, I recommend you check out that other video I have just pointing out the different concerns I have about that. But there's just, I don't know. We're learning. There's a lot more to learn. Or maybe we're getting really close. I think we are. I really do. But there are last few pieces of this puzzle we still need to figure out, and I just hope we continue to work together on this. I think I'm gonna try and wrap this up now. So, I mean, I hope there's, like I said, there's so much I want to do. I've been struggling with busyness in life. I've been struggling with software issues, but now I finally have the ability to record my screen on a couple different computers, and I'm able to record my screen on the computer I have Stellarium on. So I'm going to be cranking out a whole bunch of videos pointing out things, a little short food for thought, but again, the fall equinox is approaching, so I'm going to be trying to rally the troops again. Hopefully we'll get the participants from this last event to participate again, and if you want to join the list, I'll be sending out an email to a few people, but feel free to send me an email, avoiceoftruthbeloved@gmail.com, if you want to join this kind of effort. And we'll just see. I'll put on a prep for fall equinox video because it'll be interesting to consider other things like the stars and the moon as well, but that's kind of outside the scope of this summary of this event. So I hope some of those tips were useful. I hope some of this data makes more sense, but more than ever, I hope that that more and more truth seekers will try and participate in this kind of thing, and together, I really believe if we're seeking this truth in love with pure hearts, we will. The Father, the Creator, He will reveal this truth. No good thing will He withhold from them who diligently search, seek him, or something like that. So, anyway, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open. I do believe we can figure this out, and it's just a matter of time. He has perfect timing, and he plans to reveal this. So, please join the efforts, put the word out, get other people to join the efforts, and stay tuned for the next few videos on the fall equinox and a bunch of other things. So, shalom, and may Abba bless as you continually seek out his truth in love with a pure heart.